Today, we're going to talk about parting off and my top 5 tips for success. Parting off can be a real challenge for beginners, and I can recall struggling with it for a long time. Okay, let's count them down from number 5. Cutting oil. This may seem simple, but it seems to make a real difference in most metals. I like to run my oil brush on the cut, so it continually lubricates as I part off. My cutting oil of choice is Magic Tap, but there's plenty of other good ones out there to choose from. One other note, smoke from cutting oil is meant to be harmful for you, so try not to breathe it up. Right, let's move on to number 4. Cutting speed. Cutting speed needs to be slower than what you'd normally cut with. I find this takes a bit of experimentation, so start really slow and then bring it up slightly until you get a nice chip coming off. Another thing to note is the diameter can affect your cutting speed as well. So if you're parting off a small diameter part, your lathe will need to be turning faster than a large diameter part to get the same effective cutting speed. Okay, let's move on to number 3. Lock your carriage. The last thing you want while you're parting off is your carriage moving sideways and your parting blade taking a side cut. That'll never end well, believe me from experience. If you have a benchtop lathe like mine, it didn't come with a carriage lock handle, just a hole for an Allen key. So what I've done is made up this Allen key with a handle, which makes it easier to use. Right, let's move on to number 2. Make sure your cut's well supported, and that starts with not parting off too far from the chuck. You don't want to be out on the end of a piece like this, you want to be as close as you can to the chuck. And of course your type of chuck does make a difference as well. If you're parting off in a 3-jaw chuck with a small diameter part and apply too much pressure, then you can actually push the part out of centre. Once again, believe me, I've tried it. Right, let's get to the big one, number 1. Let's talk about the parting tool itself. It needs to be sharp, well supported, square and on centre. Yes, I know that's a lot of things, so let's break it down. First, it needs to be sharp. I tend to use my belt grinder these days, but a bench grinder or a stone are good options as well. So whatever's convenient and works for you. The important thing is it has a nice sharp edge. Okay, let's move on to the tool being well supported. A good tool hold is the key here. Whether you have the quick change tool post version like this, which has a built-in cutting angle, or you've got one that fits in your 4-way tool post, the key is it's well supported. So I wouldn't recommend using one of these side holders and a quick change tool post holder. Basically, the further the tool is from the tool post itself, the more at risk you are of getting sideways deflection, and that usually ends in failure. One thing to note with these side holders that don't have a cutting angle built into them, you'll need to grind the cutting angle into your tool. Okay, let's move on to your tool being square with your workpiece. The reason your tool needs to be square with your workpiece is to avoid a side cut and the tool digging in. The easiest way to do this is just to line your tool up with the chuck. Unlock your tool post, square your tool up with the chuck, and then lock it back up again. It's really as easy as that, and it makes a huge difference. Next up, your tool being on centre. There's a few ways to check this, but let's start with this way. This is a small level made by Edge Technology, which you can use with any tool to check it's on centre. Then if you have a quick change tool post, it's as easy as a couple of turns with a spanner, or sorting out some shims if you've got a 4-way tool post. Another way to centre your tool is to line up with your tailstock centre. This usually works pretty well. Another one I've seen is to use a 6-inch rule, put it between the workpiece and the tool, and it should hold vertically if on centre. I've never quite got that one to work myself, but I know a lot of people have. Okay, that's been my top 5 elements to success with parting off. As mentioned earlier, I know a lot of people struggle with this. I certainly have in the past, and still do on the odd occasion, and when that happens, it's usually one of these 5 items that I've neglected. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and maybe even learnt something. Please like, subscribe and share. Catch you next time.